Joining me now, of course, is our friend of the show, Judge J. Michael Luttig. He's a former federal judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. Judge Luttig, you are also, and I remind our viewers to whom you are beloved, you are a conservative. You are a committed conservative and have been all your life. This speech offends that part of you. It offends your conservative judicial sensibilities.
It does, Ali, and thank you for having me on this morning. I believe that this speech could prove to be the single most important speech of political and constitutional philosophy that should never have been given. As you say, as a conservative my entire life, Ali, I certainly wish Justice Thomas had not written and given this speech. It is a far more unfortunate speech for conservatism than it is even for progressivism. The justice obviously intended this as a conservative manifesto for our times, and indeed for all times. But what he said is not doctrinal conservatism. It's not political conservatism, and it is manifestly not constitutional conservatism, and no one should mistake this for true conservatism or even republicanism, much less constitutional conservatism. It's anything but these. I have long considered this a bastard strand of conservatism that lingered in the faculty lounges of the academy until it came to fuel Donald Trump's rise to power in 2016. The overarching significance of the speech is really that it is the intellectual underpinnings for the current president, his presidency, and his MAGA movement. It was, in fact, the underlying justification for, and the but-for cause, as we lawyers say, of President Trump's failed effort to cling to power on January 6th. However, it is as certainly wrong as it believes. It is certainly right. It's simply and demonstrably wrong as a matter of historical fact, political fact, and constitutional fact and law. It's a shockingly ahistorical characterization, not just of liberals, but also conservatives. This is emphatically not what the founders of this nation contemplated or ever intended, Ali.
This last week, we've seen a move by the Department of Justice to vacate the convictions of 12 people who were convicted of seditious conspiracy as it related to January 6th. You are making the argument, I'd like you to just flesh this out a little more, about the stuff that Justice Thomas said in relation to January 6th, how that is connected to the intellectual underpinnings for what happened on January 6th, 2021.
Yes, it's actually since January 6th, I have referred to this political and constitutional theory, if you will, as the ugly underbelly of the current conservative MAGA movement in America. As I said before, this has been batted around for many, many years. And by the way, Justice Thomas believes this to his core. He believed this for many years before he was appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. And in fact, he is an apostle and has always been an apostle of so-called natural law. For your listeners and your audience, you can equate they can equate natural law with the Declaration of Independence. That is that the rights in the Declaration of Independence are God-given as a matter of natural law. This was the initial problem for Justice Thomas at his confirmation hearing. But in his hearing, if I recall correctly, and I do, he rejected natural law as a source for constitutional interpretation as a Supreme Court justice. But I want to make the point, Ali, if I may, that perhaps it can be said that Woodrow Wilson rejected the Declaration's preamble, but virtually no progressive or Democrat since Woodrow Wilson has rejected it. In fact, every single progressive president since Woodrow Wilson has enthusiastically embraced the preamble, the Declaration itself, and Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence. For goodness sakes, President William Jefferson Clinton began his inauguration at Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, and from that pilgrimage to Thomas Jefferson at the mountaintop of Monticello, he traveled to Washington, D.C. to be sworn as President of the United States. For 250 years, Ali, it's never been the case that either of America's two political parties has been anti-declaration or anti-constitution.
Why is that so important? I understand that, but why, in plain terms, why should that be as worrisome as it is? Why is this such an influential and important speech that, as you said, you wish had never been made?
Well, our friend Jeffrey Rosen, the foremost scholar in the world of America's founding, has just written the definitive book called The Pursuit of Power, Hamilton versus Jefferson. And in that treatise, Jeffrey Rosen rejects every single word of Justice Thomas's speech. And of course, Jeffrey Rosen does it with the scholarship that is unquestionable by anyone, indisputable by anyone in the United States of America or the world.
What's the consequence of this? Why did Justice Thomas do this? I get you when you say that he believes this at his core, and he believed it long before he became a justice of the Supreme Court. Is there something else to doing this in this moment?
Of course there is. This is the singular moment in which to do this if you are Justice Thomas. Why? Because America is celebrating this year, on July 4th, the 250th anniversary since the founding of the greatest nation on earth. And during the course of this year, America will be celebrating its story at the same time that the President of the United States has already told America that he will be celebrating a different story of America than what is in fact America's story. This is the moment for Justice Thomas to have made this particular speech. And incidentally, if there is a silver lining to this speech, it is that he has given it, he has explained it, he has analyzed it comprehensively, and now it is out there for the world to dispute and to reject.
And I think that's the important work right now. And you're doing it here on this show. Do you feel there will be enough, or there has been as yet enough of a response to this remarkable speech?
No, but the speech was just given a few days ago, and we all must understand, or I would urge America to understand, this is a speech, a momentous speech of lasting consequence. Every single word of this speech should be parsed by every single American this celebratory year, because this is America's time of testing. 250 years since the founding, Americans must decide today, this year, what it is that they want for America, what it is that they want America to be and not to be in the future. And that's of enormous consequence.
Judge, thanks for being with us this morning. We appreciate your analysis. Judge J. Michael Luttig is a former federal judge on the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit.